If I could just have your attention, please, we'd like to get started. All right. So, good morning, everyone. We affectionately call this staircase the staircase to nowhere, but it does get occasional use, and so we're very happy to have you here. I'm Chris Dinsdale, the President and CEO of the Calgary Airports, and obviously it's a pleasure to welcome you here at YYC, located on the traditional territory of the Treaty 7 nations and the Métis government encompassing Battle River territory. Today marks an exciting first step in the connectivity of our province. Here to share more on this is the Honourable Danielle Smith, of course the Premier of our Alberta, and the Honourable Devin Dreeshen, Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors. There will be a question and answer period at the end following the remarks. And with that, I'd like to welcome the Premier to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm pleased to be here with Devin Dreeshen, Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors, and of course, Chris Dinsdale, the President and CEO of the Calgary Airport Authority, to make an important announcement about passenger rail in Alberta. If you made the drive to the Calgary International Airport today, you may be happy to know that one day that commute is going to be a whole lot easier, because today we're announcing our first steps towards building a passenger rail network across our province. Passenger rail is an idea that has been discussed in our province for decades, and for decades Alberta watched and waited while rail system networks were quickly and safely moving people across municipalities elsewhere, in Eastern Canada, in Europe, and of course in the United States. But it's time to stop waiting. Today I'm pleased to announce that Alberta's government is beginning the work to make passenger rail a reality in our province. We're beginning with an investment of $15 million over 3 years, and this funding will help start the planning process for passenger rail and support engagements with proponents, industry, and private sector partners, many of whom have also long shared this vision. This investment supports Alberta's passenger rail master plan, developed through extensive engagement with Albertans, municipalities, Indigenous communities, passenger rail stakeholders, and rail experts from across the globe. As part of that work, Minister Dreeshen and I met with passenger rail operators, manufacturers, and industry leaders, and had the opportunity to ride via rail service between Montreal and Ottawa. Those discussions gave us valuable insight into the planning, operations, and partnerships needed to support successful passenger rail systems. We had the opportunity to ride via rail service, as I mentioned, between Montreal and Ottawa, and discuss the best practices for passenger and high-speed rail with experts from across the sector. We heard many perspectives, but one thing was abundantly clear. A feasible passenger rail network is no longer just a vision for Alberta, it's a goal. Certainly, it's an ambitious goal, and it will take about 3 decades of steady, incremental work to achieve it. But with the master plan complete, strong interest across the province, and a growing population putting more pressure on our roads and highways, we are eager to get started. Anyone who drives the QE2 knows that traffic congestion is no longer just a long weekend problem. People who live in outlying communities like Airdrie but work in Calgary can tell you how difficult that drive can be, especially in the winter. The same is true for anyone trying to catch a flight at the airport and gets delayed by a collision or by bad road conditions. Last year, I had the opportunity to ride Japan's famous Shinkansen high-speed rail system, traveling at speeds of up to 320 kilometers per hour. Those trains move people quickly, safely, and efficiently between major cities and regions. Experiencing that firsthand reinforced something that many Albertans already know. Modern passenger rail has the potential to transform how people move around a growing jurisdiction. In fact, a high-speed connection between Calgary and Edmonton could one day reduce travel times between our 2 largest cities to under an hour. Our vision begins with passenger rail connecting Edmonton and Calgary with their international airports. We're focused first on these airport connections because Albertans have told us that they are a priority. We'll also be looking at connecting a rail network to existing LRT systems in our 2 major cities. But our vision goes beyond that. Over time, we also want to build stronger connections along Alberta's busiest corridors and to our province's top tourist destinations. A passenger rail line from Calgary to our national parks, complete with the breathtaking mountain views that tourists flock to Alberta for, would boost our continued work to grow our visitor economy. And no doubt about it, it's going to take some time. But whether it's planning a trip to the mountains or realizing a vision that will transform transportation and tourism, every journey begins with the first step. And today, we're taking ours. Before Minister Dreeshen shares more details, I do want to thank everyone who provided input that helped to shape the Passenger Rail Master Plan. And thank you also to potential partners who share our vision for passenger rail. I look forward to working together on every short-term, medium-term, and long-term milestone on this project. And now I will turn it over to Minister Dreeshen.
Well, thank you so much, Premier, and good morning, everyone, and thank you also to Chris Dinsdale. Now, after a lot of work and industry consultation, Alberta's passenger rail plan finally is complete. Alberta is ready for rail. And this visionary plan looks decades, as the Premier mentioned, ahead and identifies a passenger rail network that will transform the way Albertans live, work, and travel across our beautiful province. We are moving forward to advance passenger rail plan that is based on the findings of the master plan. Now, Budget 26 includes $15 million over 3 years to support this work, and throughout the development of the master plan, we heard that passenger rail connections between Calgary and Edmonton and their international airports is the first building block. That's why our initial work beginning this year will focus on these connections. The funding will also support initial planning for a central station in downtown Calgary. This vision for a passenger rail station would connect to a future Calgary event center. Having these connections would eventually allow passengers to travel seamlessly between downtown Calgary to right here at the airport. This work builds on Alberta's commitment of $51 million over 3 years to support Calgary's Blue Line LRT extension to 88th Avenue, which will eventually tie into Calgary's airport transit connector. In Edmonton, funding will plan for a passenger rail connection between their LRT system and Edmonton's airport. We're also planning for a network of commuter and regional rail that will connect to Edmonton and Calgary's LRT systems and international airport to make it easier and faster and safer for Albertans to get where they need to go. So the master plan lays out a 30-year passenger rail network with the most feasible and greatest travel benefits for Albertans. And that includes a high-speed regional service along the Highway 2 corridor between Edmonton and Calgary with speeds of more than 300 kilometers per hour. And no, we can't increase the highway speed limit to that, if you were wondering. But the ideal rail design would be more than 1 train an hour. Also, regional service with speeds of more than 160 kilometers per hour between Calgary and Banff with up to 1 train an hour, as well as frequent airport express and commuter rail service, including all-day service every 20 minutes for Calgary International and Edmonton International Airport, as well as commuter peak services for surrounding communities by Edmonton and Calgary, like the GO train, similar to the GO train in Ontario. We will also be engaging with private sector and industry proponents on their potential roles in implementing Alberta's passenger rail network. That engagement, with many of whom are here today, are going to help assess and develop private sector market capacity, financing options, business models, and transit-orientated development. So we do know that there's obviously lots of work ahead, but the work that we are doing right now will set Alberta on the right track for a passenger rail network that will support economic growth and improve our quality of life here in Alberta for generations to come. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Premier Smith and Mr. Dreeshen. By the end of this year, Calgary Airport International is hopeful, we expect, to reach 20 million passengers for the first time in our history. And this is a significant milestone for our airport and puts us well on track for our 2030 goal of 25 million. So the development of a rail link to YYC is very timely, and I know that many of our guests would absolutely agree. Calgary Airports has been an enthusiastic partner in advancing the passenger rail master plan, and I appreciate Premier Smith's, Mr. Dreeshen's, and their entire staff's support in involving us. In a country the size of Canada, connectivity is not a luxury, it's essential, and we need to pull all the levers available to strengthen our transportation infrastructure across the region. I've been gratified by the level of engagement and the dialogue extended to us and through the studies that have been done. We're ready, we're excited, and we're ready to get this moving. Calgary's airport's sole role is to serve Albertans. They're our shareholders, and they're providing reliable and convenient access to Calgary Airport is critical, ensuring we meet their needs. In this first step, a rail link to the downtown to YYC will ensure Albertans and Calgarians have this easy access to the airport, while also providing the same accessibility to visitors and business travelers as they visit our incredible city and region. So I look forward to continuing to advance the passenger rail master plan and exploring the partnership and how we can help. Thank you, and now we'll proceed with questions.
Thank you. We'll now head into our media Q&A portion of the announcement. For our journalists here, remember to state your name and outlet before asking your question. We'll take one question and a follow-up. We'll start off here in the room before going to the phones. Go ahead first at the mic.
Hi, Colleen Underwood, CBC News. So many questions, but I have one not related and one related. So with this plan, what would you say, what's the first thing people are going to notice with this new plan? What can they actually see?
I think what we'll do is accelerate the connections to the airport. There's, in Calgary, the extension of the balloon line is going to be very likely the most feasible project in the short term, but that helps to allow us to develop a multimodal terminal here that will pave the way for when we do build the high-speed rail. That'll be along a different route. And then I'm looking forward to starting discussions with Mayor Knack in Edmonton. I told him that this passenger rail plan was coming, and I'd love to link the airport. He said, I agree, and I've got 3 or 4 ideas about how we can go about doing that. And you already saw that as they're talking about the replacement for the high-level bridge, they did so in the context of we better make sure that we keep room for a high-speed rail. So everybody is thinking along the same lines, which is why I think it's important to have these plans out. Did you have any more you wanted to say on that, Minister?
I would say, in addition to making sure the LRT plans work, I would say the new event center downtown Calgary. Obviously, the new Saddle Dome, once that's built, and the LRT station there, that's a project that's underway. So to make sure that there's room, similar to here at the Calgary Airport, there's room set aside for a future passenger rail station. So to make sure that that new development, as that project is under construction, also has a space available for a passenger rail station is going to be really important. So a lot of this, because this is tens of billions of dollars ultimately for the infrastructure, you have to have the planning done right up front to make sure that the LRT networks, the airports, the downtown stations, everything can be planned well. And also working with the private sector, working with industry to make sure that their transit-orientated development ties into that as well. So a lot of planning and work is going to happen. And I know a lot of Albertans have been with us, joining us on this journey to make sure that we can develop this plan, but we wanted to be upfront and open with them to make sure that they knew and have their say on how this will look like for a new passenger rail vision here in the province.
I should just say one last thing. The minister and I also met with Federal Minister Steve McKinnon a couple of weeks ago and let him know that this was coming, because as you've seen in Eastern Canada, they're talking about a high-speed rail between Quebec City and Toronto. We think this would be a nice companion project in Western Canada, so we may be able to see if there's some partnership we could do with the federal government. We've partnered with them before on major LRT projects, and so this is the kind of thing that we might be able to see if we can get some acceleration of the plan between Calgary and Edmonton.
Awesome. Okay, here's my unrelated question. Bear with me. Opposition to AI data centers has been growing in various parts of the country due to concerns over electricity consumption, water usage, and land use. Voters in one U.S. municipality have even approved banning them permanently. Does this give the province pause over wanting more AI data center development?
We were watching what was happening in the U.S. and have proactively addressed many of the concerns that we saw arise there. Number one is that we've told our AI data center proponents, if you want to come to Alberta, bring your own power. Better yet, build more power than you need and sell back to the grid. That to me is the way that everybody benefits, is that we don't end up having to having consumers worry that they're going to end up with shortages or even see price spikes. So we've already provided that protection, and it's the reason we only released 1,200 megawatts for AI data centers. We've got about a 2,700 megawatt buffer, but the most we felt we could release to get them started was 1,200 megawatts. So we've been very conscious of that, and I'm glad to see that most of the proponents are doing exactly as we asked, partnering with companies so that they can build their own power. The water issue as well, there are alternatives. I believe that some of the proponents are talking about air cooling, some of them are talking about using glycol. So there are alternatives to water use, and I think that you will find more and more are going to look along those lines or have a closed loop system so that they withdraw once and then are able to recycle. So those are the things that we've learned from what we've seen in the United States. But I think the bigger issue is we've got to give people hope and understanding that this is going to be an approach that helps improve their quality of life and improve their prospects at work as opposed to taking jobs. I think that's a lot of what is at the heart of some of the pushback. And so that's why we have a minister who has a Substack, and every time he talks about how we can use AI to make our existing employees more productive, that is, I think, the vision that we're looking for. It's not about replacing jobs, it's about allowing people to do their jobs better. And so I think it's up to all of us to try to address the concerns, hear them out, and then make sure that we're working through them. And that's what we're doing here.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Hi there, Alicia
Hi.
Gilberg with CTV News, this could be answered by either the Premier or the Minister. I just want to know, how soon could Albertans be traveling on the first finished portion of rail? How much could tickets cost, and what could the passenger experience be like?
So the passenger experience as different sections would obviously be different. So the high-speed rail between Edmonton and Calgary, there would be a stop in Red Deer and then obviously stops here at the international airports. So that experience, obviously 300 kilometers an hour going up and down the Highway 2 corridor, would be try to make it as much as a passenger, not an LRT system where you're standing up holding onto a rail, but you're actually sitting down similar to like you were in a plane, but having a larger seating area and being able to have having your luggage and being able to travel more comfortably. So that would be the experience of that passenger rail and that high-speed rail. When it comes to the commuter rails in and around Edmonton and Calgary, that would be similar to like a GO train. So 160 kilometers an hour, so slower speeds, but more condensed train cars. So the exact what the design will look like, what the technology is going to be, we do have multiple rail proponents here that have different visions of what that will look like. And that final decision by the government of Alberta, what will be the prevailing design, what will be the technology, who will be the proponent that actually builds it, is still to be decided.
And sorry, just the other parts of the question were, what the first portion to be built, any timeline on that, and the rough cost potentially for Albertans?
So the cost for Albertans, there could be a way that we design this so that transit-oriented development is no cost or very low cost to the government of Alberta. So you would have a private sector proponent coming in, footing the bill for the train, as well as all the development that goes around the train stations. So like I said, those financing options and how that looks is still the ongoing work that we're going to have with this. And the 30-year plan, that's for a complete build-out. So that's everything for the high-speed rail between Edmonton and Calgary. That's the first building block. That's what we'd like to see done first. And then the commuter rails, the possibility going out to Banff, all of that gets pieced in as well. So obviously 30 years is a very long time, but the first projects that we'd want to see, and then everything being built out from there, would be that high-speed rail along the Highway 2 corridor.
Okay, so you can't give any kind of rough time, like 10 years or anything like that? Or?
Well, 30 would all be built, but obviously it depends on the technology, depends on construction of the private sector proponent. So a lot of those are just questions that no one has the answers to yet.
Okay, this is questions for my colleague. What is your response to the Privacy Commissioner's warning that combining healthcare numbers on driver's licenses increases the risk of fraud?
Well, I see it the opposite way. I mean, British Columbia already does this. They have a joint card. And when I look at it right now, there really are no security provisions on a healthcare card. There's no picture, there's no address. All I think there is your date of birth. It doesn't expire, which is part of the reason we have 500,000 more cards than we have people who live in Alberta. So ensuring that the card is attached to a person and an address and a picture, we think that that's going to actually increase the level of security of those cards, especially since the card itself has 57 different security features on it to prevent against fraud. So we'll happily listen to some of the concerns of the Privacy Commissioner, but in this case, we think that the approach that we're taking is far superior to the one that we have right now.
Hi, Premier Jason Marks from CBC. Hi. I want to take you back to last week where Rob Smith, the president of the UCP, said that the party has no position and the party's really split on separatism. You on the radio a couple days later said, I speak for the party has a position, the party is for United Canada, we're for option one, and that's the end of the story. Did the president speak out of turn, and is you wrong that the party is sharply split on this issue of whether Alberta should stay in Canada?
Well, I read the polling just like anyone, and Albertans are split on it, but I think the most recent poll suggested that 70% would vote to remain and 30% would vote to leave. I think it's my job to give hope to that 30% that things are improving, and the fact that that number has come down from where it was at its peak, I think that the work that we're doing is helping. I think it's just a matter of sort of understanding the history of where our two parties came from. In our founding documents for both the Wild Rose and the PCs, it was written right in there that we support federalism, that we support a united Canada, and we will work towards ensuring provincial sovereignty within that. And those documents went to every single Wild Rose member at the time, every single PC member at the time, and got 97% affirmation. So I would say that that's the reason our two parties came together. It's a founding principle. We're now having a province-wide debate about whether Albertans want to go in a different direction. And I'll be doing my part to, once again, ask people to vote to remain. And if they want to send a message, vote for the 9 policies we've put on the ballot to improve our autonomy. That's what I think is what our members have voted for, and that's the reason why I would say our party, our caucus, and our government are supportive of that too.
And regarding this plan, I didn't notice seeing your husband David Murray at this event. I know that he's partaken in meetings, government meetings on this issue, and he was at the last rail symposium. I'd like to know from you, is your husband going to be part of any discussions as industry and government confer on future rail plans, either on the industry side or on the government side?
Well, I can say the reason we have a master rail plan is because my husband was looking out at all of these different proposals that were out there saying, if these all go ahead willy-nilly, you're going to end up with a problem. Maybe you should put it together in a passenger rail plan. He's spent a lot of time thinking about rail. He and I love rail. We talk a lot about rail, and the culmination of that is the work the department did. Is once we made the decision that we wanted to consolidate all of these different proposals and move this process over to transportation, Minister Dreeshen took it over, and he hired engineers and experts in the field. But I'll credit my husband with giving the kickoff, saying if you don't develop a master rail plan, you're going to be in trouble.
But going forward, will he have any part in this discussion? No. Thank you.
Hi, Premier Tyson with CTV. Just want to take you back to this week. We did see a map out there of 5 proposed routes to BC when it comes to the pipeline. I know we're 26 days away from that July 1st deadline of submitting a project to the MPO. Can you give us a bit of an update on where that project is at? Have proponents come forward? Have they put together a plan that you guys are actively working to submit in 26 days?
I'm glad that is out there because it shows that there's multiple ports that we're having a look at. One in the south and multiple ones in the Prince Rupert area. But what we're looking at is feasibility, what makes the most sense, the easiest route from an engineering point of view, cost-effective point of view. How do we get closer to being straight on a deep water port so there's less navigation? All of those things are going in to the consideration, but we'll be having, as I've mentioned, it's tough because there's a lot of good opportunities and a lot of good options, but we have to narrow it down to one of those, and that one will be submitted to the Major Projects Office by July 1st. So what are we at, June 5th today? You'll be hearing pretty soon, but we're just doing a little bit of final work. and you'll see which route is the proposed one in just a few weeks.
Just to follow up, tonight you have your UCP leader speech here in Calgary. I guess maybe what's the message you're hoping to take to the party this evening, especially with some of the dissenting voices against your leadership, but just maybe a message. Are you trying to unite the party this evening? What's kind of the plan there? And are you expected to meet with Carolyn Finlay, the BC Conservative leader, as well?
So I would say that we've got 2,000 people coming tonight, so I think it's our biggest leaders dinner in Calgary ever. I'm very excited about that. And the message is just one of just genuine optimism. I go through all of the list of things that have changed in the last 18 months. And the fact that we've been able to turn the corner on some terrible policies of the last 10 years, and we're seeing the results of it. We're seeing it in aviation investment, WestJet, and Lufthansa Technik, in UAE, and CAE, as well as de Havilland. We're seeing it in the energy sector. Enbridge is announcing pipeline expansion, so is Trans Mountain and South Bow, along with ATCO and Pembina, as well as this West Coast pipeline option that we have. So these are not the conversations that were happening 18 months ago. So I think that there's a lot of pain and a lot of hurt feelings over how our province was treated for 10 years under the Trudeau government. But I think when things change, we have to acknowledge that. And when people have changed their minds and we've won them over, and Canadians are rooting for us, as they are, then I think it's my job to help share that information. So that'll be my message this evening. A little bit more. It's a long one. It's 25 minutes. So rather than tell you all of it, I'll look forward to seeing you this evening.
Go ahead.
Hi, Premier Matt Skase with the Globe and Mail. On the referendum campaign, there's a long list of groups that are stepping up right now. The NDP has a Get Out the Vote campaign, of all these independent organizations coming out the woodwork. You obviously have a massive fundraising apparatus in your own party. Will the party respond like it would an election campaign with advertisements, lawn signs, mailers, door knocking, that kind of thing for this Remain in Canada position?
Well, I can tell you, I think that my activities and the things I do are probably the most important ways that we'll be able to win hearts and minds. This is why I went to Quebec and I started off on a new partnership with Quebec so that we could look at ways that we can co-invest together. I'll be hosting Doug Ford and Scott Moe here during the Stampede once again and having a couple of announcements then. I hosted the Western Premiers. We'll be hosting the Pacific Northwest region as well. We've got the Global Petroleum Show next week. I know my friend R.J. Simpson is coming down from the Northwest Territories for that. I'm going to the Council of the Federation in Charlottetown, and I have a very aggressive travel schedule over the summer where I will be doing lots of coffee parties and lots of town halls and talking to lots of people. And so that's the way that you win people over, that's what a traditional campaign looks like, winning hearts and minds, and I'll be spending a lot of time doing that over the summer.
Okay. And last week we saw a separatist line up for the nomination in Calgary. Shaw didn't work out for him, but my question is, will you disqualify any potential candidates who have separatist leanings?
I would say that you have to follow the rules if you want to get on the ballot, which means you have to have valid signatures and you have to make sure everyone who signs your nomination papers has a valid membership. And if you can't follow those basic rules, you're not going to be able to get onto the ballot. I think that members are smart enough to know who it is that they want to represent them. I think there's two really excellent candidates that have put their name forward there, and I'm looking forward to seeing which one wins. On June 24th, I think, is when Election Day is. But as I said, we have I expect that we have all of our. I would expect that we would see that our members of the Legislative Assembly, our caucus, our government, understand that our party has a principle of supporting a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. We listen to everybody in our party, but the biggest debate we're having right now is going to be taking place through direct democracy at the ballot box on October the 19th. And that's what I'm asking all of our members to encourage people to talk to their friends, family, neighbors, and to vote in that contest. And I've made my position clear. I think we should vote to Remain and send a message a different way by voting for the other 9 measures that would give us more autonomy.
Thanks, Matt. We have time for a few more questions. We'll try to get to the rest of the room, then go to the phones. Go ahead.
Thanks for taking my questions, Premier. Treaty 8 First Nations are renewing their opposition towards having any kind of referendum on separation, but your office and Minister Sawneys didn't directly respond yesterday to Chief Markerty saying that civil disobedience is on the table. How would you respond to him?
Well, we do have a Critical Infrastructure Act, which prevents, it's against the law to block critical infrastructure. And I think you saw how serious we are about enforcing that law, as we have many times over previous years. So I hope it doesn't come to that. But the fact of the matter is, this is a policy question. It's a citizen initiative referenda. We have a right to ask our citizens what they think about any number of issues. There is, the way the question is worded, there is no duty to consult that has been triggered. And I'm looking forward to hearing what Albertans have to say on this matter. When 700,000 Albertans say they want to have a debate on an issue, as Premier of the province, it's my obligation to give them an opportunity to have that debate.
Just to follow up on that, his Chief Marketing also said that their relationship with your government is fundamentally ruined. How would you characterize that relationship, and how do you plan to fix it?
Well, I think it's overstated. I mean, we've got 11 recovery communities we're building, 4 of them in partnership with nations, one that I was on reserve just to announce the ribbon cutting on. We've got the Métis Nation of Alberta that is opening up another one with Métis. I meet regularly with the Métis settlements. I meet regularly at protocol tables with not only Treaty 8, but Treaty 7, Treaty 6, and the Blackfoot Confederacy. At those tables, I bring 10 to 15 ministers, and then all of our departments walk away with a list of issues to work on together. We're right in the middle of negotiating a couple of big deals through Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation that is going to give many nations additional revenue streams, and we also make a number of announcements around the $750,000 grant to build businesses on First Nations. So I would say that all of that is the relationship. It's not just one disagreement over one issue, and the relationship that we have with nations is going to continue to be one of respectful nation-to-nation relationship. We will support them in our areas of jurisdiction where we can help, and I'm just pleased to see that we have so many areas of collaboration.
So I guess just to clarify, we have time for a few more quick questions, so I can just get to the last two here.
Hi, Leah Mush at Western Standard. I actually have a question for Minister Dreeshen. The Calgary Police Chief, Katie McClellan, has said that she would like to have the power to impound vehicles of excessive speeders, and BC already has the power to do this. So are you thinking this is something you'd be willing to do?
So in Alberta, we actually have the ability for excessive speeders, racers, to actually have their vehicles impounded right now. The conversations I've had with both Edmonton and Calgary Police is that definition is very tough to prove in court. So that is something that we're looking at, working with the police in both Edmonton and Calgary to see if there is maybe a legislative change of that definition to make sure that dangerous speeders could have their vehicles impounded. But that's something that we're currently having those discussions with both Edmonton and Calgary Police.
Okay, and also another question for you. On October 19th, will you be voting for Alberta to remain in Canada or for the government to begin the process towards a binding referendum on Alberta independence?
Well, thank you for the question. I think there's 100 people in this room, so my one vote versus their 100 might be a little skewed. But I would say ultimately when it comes to, I see the media has been asking lots of politicians what their opinion and what their singular vote is going to be. But I do find it interesting that I haven't seen a lot of pressure on the federal government to see what they're going to do, because it is the federal government's primary responsibility to make sure that the country stays together. And we are seeing that the Calgary Stampede is coming up here in July. I've had numerous issues with federal government, whether it's Ochis First Nation, who has been trying to get a federal road built in their nation for years now. I actually went to Ottawa 2 years ago with the First Nation to see if they could get federal funding and get the approval for a road to be built on their reserve. And the federal government still to this day has said no. And we just saw 2 tragic deaths happen last week. So to me, there's lots of federal issues, and I think there's lots of work that the federal government can do to try to make the case for why Canada works and try to convince Albertans why they should be voting to stay in Canada during the October vote. So I think there's a lot of work that can be done, and we're doing our best part as a provincial government to make sure that we can support Albertans and make sure that they have the best quality of life here in the province.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions. We'll take our last on the mic and then go to our last question on the phones. Go ahead.
Amazing. So Louis Philippe with Radio-Canada. Premier, your government announced 2 years ago a 15-year master plan.
Yes.
And today you're basically saying we're trying to accelerate it, but you're announcing a 30-year master plan now. So what changed within these 2 years? And most importantly, what's new?
Sure. So we did release the findings that we had of just consultations with Albertans. We had a survey. We asked what's their expectations, what would they like to see. As I mentioned before, Albertans are kind of with us as a government on the journey of the development of passenger rail. And we did release the findings of that engagement, but since then, we've actually been working with the rail industry to try to figure out what is the art of the possible, what can we actually build and develop here. And then we also, as a government, set the expectations of what we would like to see province-wide. And as I mentioned, the first part, the first building block, is that high-speed rail connection between Edmonton and Calgary, a stop in Red Deer, and also at the Edmonton and Calgary International Airports, and then commuter rail to be built out beyond that. So that's, and the expectations and the timelines is what we've now set out. So at 300 kilometer an hour of a high-speed rail, 160 kilometer an hour for commuter rail in and around Edmonton and Calgary, similar to the GO train in Ontario, as well as going out to our beautiful parks as well. So obviously a possibility of a Calgary-Banff rail. So we asked Albertans first what they expected and were looking into, and now we're actually doing that next step of working with industry to see what's possible. And the 30 years is an ambitious timeline, but as I said, it will go in stages. And the Calgary to Edmonton, that will be the first stage.
And just to Premier, how confident are you this is going to live past your mandate or mandates?
Well, I think we're at a point now, and I know it's been talked about over the years, and different land has been put aside over the years, but I think we're finally at that critical mass where it's time. When you look at the population density in the Calgary area through Red Deer and onto the Edmonton area, there are many successful high-speed rail segments in the world that have on or about that number of population. Maybe we're a little bit low. I think some of them are in sort of the 5 million person range that they are able to support. We're in that corridor, somewhere between 3 to 5 million, but we're going to keep on growing. So I think that by putting it out there, it's going to be a lens that everyone looks through now, and I think it's already had the impact. As I mentioned with Mayor Knack pointing out, they want to replace the high-level bridge, but they want to do it with rail in mind. That I wish that had been the case with some of the other rail that had been given up over the years, because we might have been able to use some of that for this plan now. But I think I know a proponent for the Banff project is here. I see Adam Watrous is here as well. You might want to talk with him. I know he's been waiting for this to be announced so that he could see how his proposal, and I know he's working with the federal government on that, how his proposal might fit into this also. And then also now we'll be able to have a broader conversation with the federal government about that really critical Calgary-Edmonton link, because oftentimes when I'm chatting with the Minister Dreeshen, we talk about what is the alternative if we don't build this route. What is the cost associated with having to add additional lanes on the QE2? That's sort of the lens we have to look at, is maybe we'll have to do both of them eventually, but we are getting at that point where we're congested enough on that in really important thoroughfare that what's the cost benefit, and does it make more sense from a safety point of view, convenience point of view, and integration of our economy's point of view to go rail as the next step rather than widening that road. And it'll allow us to have conversations with Mayor Farkas and Mayor Knack about accelerating our partnership on building the routes to the airport. So those are all the things that I would expect you'll see some progress on over the next couple of years. And I would hope that now that we have it out there, and it's a realistic plan, we'll probably see that there's a number of partners coming forward. So you'll have to ask me again in a year and a half what my optimism is, but it's pretty high right now.
Thank you. We have time for one last question. We're going to go to the phones. Operator, could you put through our first caller, please?
We have a question from Rick Bell from Post Media. Your line is open.
Good morning, or good afternoon. No, it's still morning. Good morning, Premier. Question for you. In a Post Media Leger poll, if anything, the numbers are even wider. There's a 44-point gap when the actual referendum question is asked. That is to say, remaining as a province, or the longer optional question. There's a 44-point gap between those who want to remain in Canada and those who want to continue the process toward a binding referendum. So those people, that's 24%. And of that 24%, almost all of them are people who voted for you. So how do you feel about that? How do you plan to deal with the fact that you're leading a party where the voters for that party they're the ones who are on the 24%.
Well,
not on the, half of them are on the Remain, but the other half are not.
Well, Rick, I can tell you that what had me very worried after the Liberals won again last April was that number was as high as 42%. So the fact that it's now down to 24% shows that the work that I'm doing and the work that the Prime Minister is doing is working to give people hope again in the country. And that's what we have to do when you see people who are upset, who are hurt, who are angry, who have given up. You don't ridicule them. You say, what is the issue that is causing you to feel that way? And then you address it. And that's what I've been doing, is working through addressing it, and it appears to be working. And so obviously we have to get those, address more of those problems so that we can get more of those folks feeling confident again. But that's my job to do. I mean, I know that the NDP is going around asking my members how they're going to vote. Well, I'd like to ask the NDP, how many of them support Avi Lewis and his aspiration to stop the construction of all fossil fuels? I haven't heard a single NDP member call him out on that. And that is one of the reasons why people have frustration, is that we've been targeted by the NDP Liberal coalition in Ottawa for the last 10 years. So do the NDP support their federal leaders' aspiration to continue to try to bottleneck and lock our fossil fuels in the ground? I haven't heard any of them expressing support for our West Coast pipeline and doing what they can with their NDP counterparts in British Columbia to stop blocking our aspiration to get that to the coast. I haven't heard them talk about whether they're supportive of South Bow's line to get more of our product to the United States. These are the things that have people frustrated and angry. And the fact that we still have an NDP party that is actively working against Alberta's interests at the federal level and completely mute and unwilling to stand up for Alberta's interests at the provincial level, I would like a little help. Maybe they can help by being a little bit more vocal and being a little bit more pro-Alberta and being a little bit more active in campaigning to get the reversal in policy in their own party. So that's what I would say, is we can work together to get that number down. But let's not pretend about why people are feeling a loss of hope in the first place. They're feeling a loss of hope because of the Liberals and NDP and the kind of policies that were put in place for 10 years that the new Prime Minister and I are reversing.
And are you concerned, or how do you feel about the fact that in every day and every way on social media, leading or at least loud voices and well-known voices in the Alberta independence movement are not only working for their side, obviously, in the referendum, but also continue attacking you very strongly for the stand you are taking on the referendum?
Well, I don't see it that way. The way I see it is my job to make sure that people have correct information and full information when they go to vote. And so that's why we're initiating a process. We'll have more to say about it soon, to do an economic analysis of all of the things it would cost to set up a federal government from scratch, because there is a paper that is out there that I think misses some pretty big key pieces. And so we want to have an independent panel look at those issues and give us an assessment of what would it cost if you're trying to set up all of the structures and institutions of a federal government from scratch. And then what are the ongoing costs associated with that? I don't know how anybody could have a vote on this issue without having clear and concise information about that. So I think that's a responsible thing for us to do. Maybe there'll be other groups who will put that out as well, but that has to be part of the mix. And I think that is one of the things that I've read about the poll today, is that as the reality sets in about what it would take to do some of those things, that may be causing some folks to reconsider and maybe having a new assessment of how Canada is working for us. And I know it's not perfect, but it's in my opinion, it's so much better, and the conversation is so much better than what we were having 18 months ago. And I think it'll be so much better 18 months from now. At least we're heading in the right direction. And we were not, I couldn't say that with confidence 18 months ago, but I can say that now. I just have to do a little bit more convincing.
Thank you. That'll conclude our press conference today.
Thanks, everyone.